Hey everyone, Therese Jardine here, and I'm back for another WEI Tech Talk. Hey Mark, it's great to see you again. How did summer treat you this year?
Summer's been great. Developed some new courses. Taught a few of those new courses to folks, and got some really good feedback on that. Also got a chance to head out to a couple of conferences this year because it's been since February of 2020 since many of us have gotten back together. So it was great seeing my peers and running through solutions and meeting customers again face to face.
Boy, I hear you. It's been great to get back to conferences and, like you, get to meet some of my peers. And that certainly was a highlight for me as well. As we talk about simplified management, how can unified storage help address the threat of ransomware?
Well, again, we're talking on the Nutanix side of the world. So Nutanix has done a lot of cool things in the in its AOS system, right? The AOS is what actually runs the OS, provides the Nutanix magic, so to speak, of hyperconverged. And the way that they do data protection, providing us, essentially it's snapshots, right? But they're not the same way folks might have seen snapshots from, days gone by in the VMware side, but it's, really snapshots from a storage perspective. And if you're looking to provide and create a business continuity plan as well as, a disaster recovery plan, there's a lot of cool things you can do with just those core competencies. Core capabilities they have of doing snapshots. If you wanted to go ahead and make sure you could quickly recover a 4 terabyte, SQL database, that's great. And you just have to make sure we have the storage to back that, right? Well, I'm explaining about a VM and an application that we traditionally run. All those same kind of benefits fall into the unified storage offerings that they have because they're built on that same platform. So just take for an example, somebody who wanted to protect their and have the ability to roll back 60 days in the environment because they've read that most ransomware attacks, the perpetrators have been in for 30, 45 days before they execute that ransomware on you. Well, wouldn't it be cool to be able to roll back to a point in time greater than what the when the attack was started, which could be 45 days before you realize it. And that's just a trade-off, right? Businesses can definitely figure out what the right trade-off there for a continuity plan is between how far back do I want to roll back quickly and easily, or they could just shift that into a disaster recovery scenario, right? And the disaster recovery scenario could perhaps maintain that 60 days. But the whole thing is it opens up options for the customers to define what's important to them, how fast they'd like to recover. Um, and it gives that to them across, not only their regular VM stack, but also across anything that's, using file shares and object-based storage um, for their application stacks.
So when you think about that, like I said, I've been following the ransomware attacks and news reports, and several of them have been municipalities and various other public entities, and they've had to pay the ransom with taxpayer dollars in order to get back up and running. And when you start thinking about the trade-offs, like you were talking about, the ROI of investing in a Nutanix unified storage solution versus not only the PRing, but the actual dollars paid to a ransomware claim. It seems like that would be a really fast ROI for an IT pro to show to their management to support,
Yeah,
the
but
business case of making that investment.
Therese, one of my favorite examples that I like to throw up there when people ask about these trade-offs, right? I'd say most of us that are listening, we all buy auto insurance and we pay the premium every year. And our goal is not to use the auto insurance. And at the end of the year, yeah, we might complain that, oh, the premium went up. But at the end of the year, we don't get upset that we spent money on auto insurance last year so we can drive our cars. And when you're thinking about your infrastructure and again, business continuity is how quick can I get back to, normal operations, and DR is if I had a massive disaster, what do I do? You know, we can definitely attack both of those, right? Because both plans are still required for any business. It's just, where do you want to put the money? Do you want to pay your auto insurance with a, very high deductible and have a low premium, or would you rather have the low deductible and a very high premium. And there's many ways that things can be tuned and polished around that to meet your requirements.
Well, and you could also argue that the quality of the insurance provider comes into play. So, when you're looking at your IT provider, the quality and ability to deliver, I think, is really important to consider too.
Oh yeah, we've all heard of folks who try to make a claim in their insurance policy and they get the runaround. Um,
Mhm.
you know, so working with a good partner definitely makes it easier.
So, when you think about protecting against it, what is a tool that IT pros could use to watch for a threat? I mean, what are some warning signs that they would watch for, and what are some ways that they could identify those warning signs?
When we're talking about ransomware, some of the things that might be important is having some level of insights into your environment. And Nutanix offers, it's as a service, software as a service. It's called Data Lens, and that really kind of gets in and will give us some deep details into our unified storage platform. um, change rate. I mean, if we see hundreds and thousands of files being changed by one user for permission sets or trying to be encrypted, that might give us some really good signs about that. Hey, something is incorrect in this environment. Someone might be doing. There might be a malicious actor here. So having some tools like that on top of, just not only the file services, which is, for Windows and NFS, the object service to provide the S3, having that intelligence provided and updated and running as a service in the cloud, that could be a huge benefit into helping you identify quickly and easily that a ransomware attack may be going on, and you could act in a more timely fashion to to rectify that.
Okay, we've talked about, the disaster recovery and the things that people can do. And, I think some people, you talk about the car insurance analogy, for example, and you know that a lot of people drive around on the road and they don't have insurance and they're just kind of hoping that they're not going to get pulled over by the cops, or even worse, they hope they don't get into a wreck.
Yeah.
So how many IT pros do you think might be in that situation where they might feel or just hope that it's not going to happen to them?
Hopefully, every IT pro hopes that it doesn't happen to them because it's not a fun process to recover from, right? Um, but I assume what you're asking is how many IT pros do you think don't have the right tools in place to help them prevent one of these ransomware attacks from happening to them? How well
Yeah,
is their security posture in place today to prevent this kind of activity? And
yeah.
no matter what we do, right? There's always a way in, right? And sometimes it can be the easiest thing. Someone just clicks on the wrong email link, right? That looks legit.
Oh,
It could be as simple as that. And that's just a lesson that we've been hearing for years. But it could also be something, you work for a large organization. All someone has to do is acquire a logoed shirt and they can walk into the building pretty much free and clear, and they could do social engineering, right? So there's a lot of ways that this stuff can get rolled out, or people can get access. And I say that most IT pros really do not want this to happen to them because they've just heard the horror stories. Uh, I'm not sure how many people would feel absolutely confident that they'd be able to stand up to a ransomware attack, or that their recovery plans are in place and tested and validated to be successful if they ever had to push the shiny red button for disaster recovery.
well, and we've talked about ransomware, but there are other things. I mean, there are physical events that can happen that could also cause business disruption. So we probably don't want to just only talk about ransomware. There are other things that could happen. The cloud goes down sometimes. Hurricanes happen. There's all kinds of things, and so I think that just having an all around good plan is important for everybody.
Not only having the plan, Therese, but practicing that plan is going to be super important. When I was at my last conference about 2, 3 weeks ago, I sat in a meet the expert sessions. I was being highlighted, and there was a few customers that came in and wanted to talk about particular products and operational challenges they were having. And it doesn't matter what the products were, but the question that they ultimately came up with: hey, we lost power in our data center. Can you help us with the order in bringing things back into service? And, rather than answer the question specifically about those products that they were asking me for, it was more about How do you practice that operation today? How do you train your people to be able to react for a whole data center, losing power and then coming back online? You know, that's a simple example. But yet, the business expects IT folks to be able to do this. But if they've never allocated out the time for us to be able to practice these drills, whether it's, starting all my systems back up or, doing something complex like failing over to another data center, how can you do something with certainty if you've never practiced it? And I tried to lead the customer down that route to help develop that plan so that they can go back to the office and actually practice what they've been expected to deliver.
How would you suggest that customers get started with a Nutanix unified storage solution?
So there's two ways to approach it, and that depends whether you want to go ahead and roll it out on-prem or if you just prefer to do some web-based learning, right? So let's start with the easy one, right? The web-based learning. Nutanix has something called Test Drive, and we'll put the link to that directly underneath the show notes. But Test Drive is a Nutanix service, and they have a unified storage test drive available, where you actually can go through and build file storage, right? And you can build S3 compatible storage. And you can even go ahead and present Nutanix storage to as an iSCSI to physical machines, right? Somewhere else in the environment, as well as look at some of their software as a service, right? To get that reporting capability about malicious intent going on in your file-based infrastructures. So that's an easy way to get going if you don't want to do any preparatory work. Um, if you find interest in it, every Nutanix customer actually is licensed for 1 terabyte of unified storage by default. So that if you have 5 Nutanix clusters, each cluster could run a single terabyte worth of unified storage. And what that does is it really can allow you to explore that feature, put it into practice, maybe just in the IT department, right? Maybe a giant software share. But at least then you could go ahead and you could learn how to deal with replication, recovery, multiple rollback points. And then you'd be able to confidently explain what value that this could bring to the organization. Um, so that's pretty cool. If once you get beyond that point, if you if you really appreciate that unified storage capability that the Nutanix platform offers, there's ways that you can acquire that that comes in at a much lesser license cost because you buy Nutanix software that's dedicated to running files. So the only thing you can't do is run your normal user VMs. You can run all of the files and unified storage services that you'd like, just no additional VMs, meaning you wouldn't be able to load a SQL server on there. There's many ways to get started and then to go ahead and roll that out into production.
So that's really kind of interesting. So on the test drive, it sounds like it's kind of a sandbox where they can go in and create kind of a mock environment that is similar or same as their data structure, play with it.
That's exactly what it is. It's just that little sandbox environment.
Once they've done that, then it's a great way, I think, for them to go to their management and show the business case for why it would be a good idea to move forward with the Nutanix solution. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I've even seen some cowboys that went out and deployed it, and just again, keeping it simple. You start with something as simple as a software share that most IT organizations have, and yeah, that should usually fit within a terabyte. You roll that out and you share it with the IT team, and you start to look at the power and the rollback from something that's practically consumed. There's
Yeah.
a lot, you start putting that, and now it becomes a tangible benefit. You've seen how it can work for you. I think that's really when folks start realizing the capabilities of the software is when they consume it for themselves.
Well, and coming from the finance world like I do, the ROI and being able to show the business case, that one sounds like pretty close to a slam dunk. I mean, if you've got a low cost, no cost way to test it out and then prove that it really works, then building the case to actually get the investment would be a lot easier, I would think.
And I'll throw us out there on the wire, but I mean, if you're a Nutanix customer and you want to work with WEI, I'm sure we'll be able to find a way to make that very painless for you if you want some guidance turning that on.